This is QTV News coming to you live from our studios on Kairaba Avenue, and I am Ibrahim Abalde. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main news headlines. The Minister for Local Government and Land, Sirif Abasanyang, on Wednesday declared the immediate demolition of all buildings and structures blocking waterways within the Greater Banjul area during a tour to flood-affected areas. The Ministry of Finance has invited ministries, departments and agencies to a consultative forum for the formulation of the national budget for 2023. In its drive to meet its target of vaccinating at least 70% of the population, the Ministry of Health today launched another COVID-19 vaccine campaign starting this week. A $21.9 million agro-food processing center to be built at the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute to be used as a training and capacity building center for students. In sports news, the Gambia Under-21 male volleyball team is set to compete in the African Nations Championship in Tunisia. Those were the main headlines, and now the news in detail. The Minister for Local Government and Land, Sirif Abasanyang, on Wednesday declared the immediate demolition of all buildings and structures blocking waterways within the Greater Banjul area. He made this disclosure during a day-long visit to areas believed to have encroached on the waterways. And Sumana Eso Nyasi reports.
This visit and decision to demolish some of these structures comes in the wake of recent devastating floods that ravaged communities across the Gambia, leaving thousands of people displaced. And as government agencies mobilize resources to support those affected, as well as devise strategies for lasting solutions to mitigate in case of a recurrence, the Department of Physical Planning and the NDMA concluded that one of the major reasons for the floods is the unlawful encroachment on waterways. Accompanied by the PS for Lands, the Director of Physical Planning and the Director of Local Governance, amongst other senior officials, the Minister first visited Bond Road in Banjul, where two big structures have been constructed on what is reclaimed land. The workers on the site were told to stop work immediately.
This encroachment is not proper. It's at the detriment of the Banjulians. We are all the same people in the same country. We owe them as a ministry a responsibility to safeguard the people's life through the encroachment of this type of situations. We need to stop it. So if it is BCC, they will take care of it. If it is Ministry of Lands, they will take care of it. But I know that the situations cannot be left unchecked. We must have to check the situation.
From Bond Road, the minister and delegation visited Joswan, the bridge in Kotu, and Tipa Garage. He advised residents around the area for those constructing on waterways to cease immediately. At the Social Security Estate in Jabang, they met physical planning and NDMA officials who were preparing to start demolishing buildings that have encroached on waterways. Among the causes identified by physical planning officials as being responsible for the floods here is the construction of buildings such as this one right under the bridge, a natural waterway. This was the minister's reaction.
Yes, demolition is a demolition. It has to take place. Some structures have to go, as a matter of fact, because some structures are a violation of human rights, because you put your structure on the waterway and then you're forcing water to flow into somebody else's house. It's a violation of that person's right. And I don't think as our department and ministry will accept that to happen, because we are here for all Gambians and we have to draw the line across the board for everybody to live in the same standard and the same level.
From Jabang, the delegation again visited Banjul, this time at two local mechanic garages in Banjul South. Debris from the garages can be seen in heaps, blocking the water from flowing. They also visited Tali Dauda at Tobacco Road, where conditions are deplorable. The minister tells journalists that one of the major problems the ministry seeks to immediately address is the building of structures without permit from government.
We've been monitoring this flood all along, and the devastating situation it has caused so many people, besides its displacement of most of them. But we also want to identify, that's the main purpose, because from the day one we send out a team to go out and then make a spot check, identify what are the stumbling blocks in the waterways and what type of impact it can cause. Then we make that analysis, and today is a spot check on them and giving directives of what is to be done within the following weeks.
Minister Sanyang also revealed that the demolition of the identified structures will commence immediately. Answana Esonyasi for KTV News.
Answana Esonyasi there. The Ministry of Finance has invited ministries, departments and agencies to a consultative forum for the formulation of the national budget for 2023. Meanwhile, officials of the Finance Ministry have forecast a persisting downturn on the economic outlook, which will influence the government's revenue and expenditure policies and reforms for the next fiscal year. Mohamed Lamin Choi reports.
The preliminary steps towards the government's budget formulation has begun with a consultative stakeholders forum led by the Finance and Economic Affairs Ministry. Featuring on the discussions in this forum is the formulation of a budget that connects with the country's national development plan that is being developed for implementation from next year.
Because the National Development Plan 2018-2021, it was extended to 2022, so it elapses this year, and we're in the process of developing one that will start in 2023. So right now, the onus will be on the PSs to ensure that wherever they feed this budget should be reflected in the plan, because the plan is not ready. The plan is not ready, but the sectors do have priorities because they have strategic plans. Some are the duration are 10 years, some are 5 years. So they can take from their priorities and actually submit it for the budget.
The formulation of the 2023 budget will take stock of the macroeconomic realities for the Gambia, whose economy is experiencing an all-time high of inflation and a general downturn in economic activity. This is mainly due to the current global financial crisis as the world tries to kickstart the COVID-19 recovery and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Asta Job, an economist at the Finance and Economic Affairs Ministry, tells us about the macroeconomic realities of our country.
Seems like it's going to be a tough year ahead, or maybe a tough medium term, I would say. But nonetheless, we're doing everything we can on our part. That what we can do is implement policies and have interventions that will make sure that it creates buffers for some of these shocks and make sure that we're able to build back.
The forum, which mainly comprises members of the executive, including permanent secretaries from various ministries, departments and agencies, discusses ways to stimulate government's budget policy and reforms. Mot A.K. Seka is permanent secretary of the Finance and Economic Affairs Ministry, and he tells us that government's plan is to have a realistic budget for next year.
There is a big potential impact on the overall economic sectors. And we've seen that also in terms of remittances, it has gone down substantially. So we just would have to make sure that all these shocks are addressed in such a way that we mitigate its impact on the population.
For a transparent and consultative budget process, there is a civil society representation in this consultation forum. Mar Nyang, the executive director of Gambia, participates, wants the Finance Ministry to organize a similar consultative budget dialogue with the population to factor in their development needs. He also advises government to increase its budget on capital development.
If you're putting 85% into your own money, government local fund, if you're putting 85% of that budget into recurrent expenditure, what will 15% real in terms of development? But what I'm also saying, in terms of road construction, infrastructural development, the development budget has to be able to be well funded for you to be able to realize those infrastructural development. If not, your country will be stagnant. It will like this.
During the budget formulation process, the cabinet will have a chance to provide input and approval to the first draft budget. Following this, the finance minister will present the final draft to the National Assembly for review, amendments and approval. The tabling of the budget usually happens a few months before the end of a fiscal year. Mohamed Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Mohamed Lamin Choi there. Now, in its drive to meet its target to vaccinating at least 70% of the population, the Ministry of Health today launched another COVID-19 vaccine campaign. And of course, this will take place from August 11, 2022 to August 20th, 2022. More in this report.
Only 18.5% of the population is said to have taken the jabs since the COVID-19 vaccine campaign was launched in the Gambia. That is a far cry from WHO and the ministry's target of vaccinating at least 70% of the population. And in a bid to meet their target, the ministry is embarking on another vaccination campaign from the 11th to the 20th of August 2022. This time, 3 vaccines, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer and Sinopharm, will all be available. And all individuals aged 12 above are eligible to take the jabs. Sanjali Trawale, Deputy Director of the Directorate of Health Promotion and Education at the Ministry of Health, says though the national vaccination coverage remains undesirable, there is evidence that vaccines have proved to be very effective as they have drastically reduced COVID hospitalization.
We intend to reach every part of the population so that we can attain the 70% by the end of this year. Once we are there, I'm sure the situation will change. The burden will drastically reduce because we will have a very good level of immunity for the general population. Thereby, the burden will drastically reduce.
Siddharth Fofana, manager of the expanded program on immunization, says there has been a noticeable decline in COVID testing and calls on the public to regularly take COVID tests.
This is a new disease we all know has emerged in the world. There is no way that we are going to control it. The most effective way has been vaccination. Take a shot or two of a particular vaccine and you are protected. This way, mankind is able to control disease.
Aja Kande, a communications officer at the EPI, also calls on members of the public who are yet to take the vaccine to take advantage of this campaign.
All of these vaccines have been very effective and safe for the population because this is not the first time that we are using these vaccines. It is becoming to almost a year that we are using these vaccines, and we have, thank God, that we have not registered any serious effects of the vaccines.
The number of doses administered so far is 494,512. And as they encourage members of the public to take the vaccines, officials at the Ministry of Health say the vaccines are safe and very effective. Ansumana Eso Nyasi for KTV News.
That story there by Ansumana Eso Nyasi will lead us to our first commercial break. When we return, we have more local sports news stories. Do stay tuned.
Have you been looking for the perfect indoor router with long-range Wi-Fi coverage and faster internet speed connecting all your smart devices? Well, we present to you the QCell Indoor Router, a router that has all you need and much more. For just $4,275, you can get 4G plus internet speed, wide coverage, and connect up to 15 devices. And that's not all. The indoor router can be used for both office and home needs. So, enhance your internet experience with our indoor router. For more info, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunubus. We innovate, others follow.
I woke up feeling on top of the world, like nothing's ever gonna bring me down. This feeling got me flying high as a bird. I may never touch the ground. It may not be my birthday, but I just wanna celebrate. I just wanna celebrate, 'cause it's a good day, good life.
Welcome back. A $21.9 million agro-food processing center is to be built at the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute to be used as a training and capacity building center for students. Loli M. Kamara witnessed the handing over of the site for the construction of the center and see files in this report.
The agro-food processing center is expected to be completed in 10 months and will help students in learning and also making juice using local fruits and also making cereals. According to GAMWorks, the 1,000 square meter land will have a positive impact on students. Momodu Singate, the Deputy Director General of the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute, welcomed the move and thanked stakeholders for ensuring that the project is about to be implemented.
It adds value to not only our training, but also our service delivery. This is why the management and board of GTHI did not hesitate to provide the space, the well-needed space that was necessary for such a valuable project to be able to be implemented.
Omar Gay, the Director General of GAMWorks, said the $21.9 million contract is between GAMWorks and Guy Construction. He further explains.
Apart from the construction, another component that is the responsibility of the project is equipping the structure. And there's an earmark of about 125,000 euros for that purpose. So that will commence real soon in terms of the procurement, so that by the time we reach that 10 months, those equipments are being delivered.
Sena Budrame, Communication Advisor for GIZ ECOWAS Fund for Regional Stabilization and Development, spoke about her organization roles and responsibility.
We're supporting the GTHI in form of a financing agreement of a tune of 130,000 euros. We will support them to train over 200 young Gambians, 200 students of GTHI in agro-food processing. So we have developed manuals. We've worked with them to develop manuals to train them on these curriculums, and hopefully when the project we've launched today or inaugurated today is done, the infrastructure, we will come in and train these Gambians on how to process these foods the gentleman just mentioned. So besides the support we're giving to GTHI, we're also working with other institutions like NACU to provide support to Gambians as well, microfinance. We're also working with migrant returnees.
The Deputy Director General, Mamadou Singate, revealed that GTHI will design a curriculum around the types of food to be sourced locally and devise recipes to be reproduced from the food processing plant. For QTV News, Lolly M. Kamara.
Now let's shift our attention to some sports news. The Gambia under-21 male volleyball team is set to compete in the African Nations Championship in Tunisia. As Jaina Bosonko reports, the president of the Volleyball Federation says he is confident the team will win the championship.
The championship is expected to commence from the 14th to the 23rd August 2022. The 17-person delegation will include 12 players, coaches and staff of the federation and medical personnel. Baidu Dujalo, the president of the Football Federation, explains the importance of the competition.
This tournament is very important because it also serves as the qualification for the World Championship, which is going to be held early in 2023. So 3 countries will qualify for the World Championship. So if you are able to come out with a bronze medal from this competition, bronze, silver or gold, then you move on to the World Championship.
This is the first time the volleyball team is getting 100% funding from the government of the Gambia through the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Jalo highlights how inspiring and exciting this development is for both the team and members of the federation.
Really thank the Ministry of Youth and Sports and by extension, the Minister of Youth and Sports, Honorable Bakari Baji, because this trip is 100% funded by the Ministry of Youth and Sports. They really supported both the air tickets and also the cost of the accommodation and feeding, the allowances, and the cost of preparation for this team.
Jalo says they haven't faced any major challenge throughout the preparations for the championship.
The focus is really from both us and the boys is to go and represent the Gambia very, very well. And really we ask for people to pray for us and bless us so that luck will be on our side when we go to Tunis and we'll be able to give a respectable performance for our country.
The Gambia has had significant successes in volleyball, especially beach volleyball, as the Gambian beach volleyball team is currently the best in Africa. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jaina Bosonko.
Jaina Bosonko there. Now, before we end this bulletin, here is a recap of the news headlines. The Minister for Local Government and Land, Sirif Abasanyang, on Wednesday declared the immediate demolition of all buildings and structures blocking waterways within the Greater Banjul area during a tour to flood-affected areas. The Ministry of Finance has invited ministries, departments and agencies to a consultative forum for the formulation of the national budget for 2023. In its drive to meet its target of vaccinating at least 70% of the population, the Ministry of Health today launched another COVID-19 vaccine campaign starting this week. A $21.9 million agro-food processing center is to be built at the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute to be used as a training and capacity building center for students. In sports news, the Gambia under-21 male volleyball team is set to compete in the African Nations Championship in Tunisia. That's all we have for you. Join us at 10 o'clock for more news.